My name is Holly Dixon, and I'm 32 years old. On my birthday, I walked into my parents' house expecting a surprise party. Instead, I found 200 relatives seated in rows like a courtroom, waiting to judge me. My mother ripped my childhood photos off the wall, one by one. My father stood up and read a bill for $400,000, every cent he claimed they'd wasted raising me. My sister snatched my car keys from my hand and smiled. Dad already transferred the title to me. I walked out that door without saying a word. 4 days later, they were calling me 80 times a day, but I didn't answer. And here's why. Before I tell you what happened, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up in the Dixon family, I learned early that there were two kinds of children: Megan and everyone else. My father, Richard Dixon, built a real estate company from the ground up. He was the kind of man who measured success in square footage and profit margins. My mother, Patricia, had been a teacher before she married him, but she traded lesson plans for dinner parties and social climbing. And then there was Megan, 4 years younger, impossibly pretty, and the undisputed princess of the household. I remember the day I got my full scholarship to the pre-med program. I was 16, standing on that stage, scanning the audience for my parents' faces. They weren't there. Megan had a ballet recital that afternoon. More important, my mother said later, not even looking up from her phone. When I graduated from nursing school at 22, top of my class, my mother's response was a sigh. If only you'd studied business like Megan, your father would finally have someone to take over the company. It didn't matter that Megan dropped out of that business program 2 years later. It didn't matter that I was saving lives in the ICU while she was maxing out credit cards. In my parents' eyes, Megan could do no wrong, and I could do nothing right. My beautiful youngest daughter, my mother would coo at family dinners, stroking Megan's hair. Holly, can't you learn something from your sister? I learned all right. I learned that love in this family came with conditions I could never meet. I learned to shrink myself, to stay quiet, to keep the peace. But there was one person who saw me differently, one person who loved me without conditions, and that person was about to change everything. My grandmother Eleanor was the only person in my family who ever made me feel like I belonged. When I told her I wanted to be a nurse instead of joining my father's company, she took my hands in hers. Her grip was warm, steady. Taking care of people is the most noble work there is, sweetheart. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. The doctors gave her 18 months, maybe 2 years if she was lucky. My parents talked about hiring a full-time caregiver. Megan suggested a nursing home. It would be easier, she said, filing her nails. I quit my job that week, moved into Grandma's little house on the edge of town, spent the next 3 years measuring out her medications, holding her hand through the bad nights, reading to her when the pain made sleep impossible. Megan visited twice in those 3 years. My parents came once a month, stayed 30 minutes, and always left with some excuse about traffic or dinner reservations. But Grandma and we had something real. She told me stories about my grandfather, about her own dreams when she was young. She taught me that strength wasn't about fighting back. It was about knowing your worth, even when everyone around you forgot it. She passed 6 months ago, quietly in her sleep, with my hand in hers. At the funeral, my mother pulled me aside. Don't act like you sacrificed so much. It's not like she left you anything. I didn't respond. I didn't know yet how wrong she was. But Grandma Eleanor had prepared something my family was already circling like vultures. The first warning sign came exactly 1 week before my birthday. My phone buzzed while I was finishing a double shift at the hospital. Megan's name on the screen. She never called me. Ever. Holly. Her voice was strange, too sweet. Have you gotten any mail from a lawyer lately? Something about Grandma's estate? I frowned at the break room wall. No, why? Just curious. A pause. Listen, I've been talking to Mom and Dad. We want to throw you a surprise birthday party. At the house, the whole family. I almost dropped my coffee. In 32 years, my family had never thrown me a birthday party. Not once. A party? For me? We want to make things right, Holly. After everything with Grandma, we've been distant. It's time to fix that. Something flickered in my chest. Hope, maybe. The desperate, foolish kind. My coworker Danny found me still staring at my phone 10 minutes later. He's been my best friend since nursing school, the brother I never had. When I told him about the call, his expression darkened. Holly. He set down his clipboard. They've never thrown you a birthday party. Why start now? Maybe they feel guilty about Grandma. People don't change overnight. They just get better at hiding their intentions. I waved him off. You're being paranoid. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake his words. The strange emphasis in Megan's voice, the question about the lawyer. Why would she ask about that? I told myself it was nothing. That maybe, finally, my family wanted to be a family. I had no idea what was really waiting for me. 3 days before the party, I ran into Aunt Ruth at the grocery store. Ruth was my mother's younger sister, the black sheep, according to my parents. She talked too much and didn't know her place. In other words, she told the truth, and my mother couldn't stand it. Holly. She grabbed my arm in the produce aisle, glancing around like we were being watched. Do you know about Megan? My stomach tightened. Know what? Ruth pulled me behind a display of watermelons. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She's in trouble. Bad trouble. She and Kyle invested everything in cryptocurrency, some scheme Kyle's friend recommended. And? They lost almost $200,000. They're drowning in debt, to the bank, to friends, to everyone. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Does Dad know? No, he's frantic. He's been trying to find money anywhere he can to bail her out. Ruth's grip tightened on my arm. I shouldn't be telling you this, Holly, but you deserve to know. Your family isn't planning a birthday party. They're planning something else. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the cheerful store music too loud. What do you mean, something else? Ruth's eyes met mine. There was pity there, and fear. I don't know exactly, but they've been meeting, all three of them, talking about Grandma's estate, about some house. She released my arm. Be careful, Holly, please. She was gone before I could ask anything else, disappearing around the corner like she'd never been there at all. I stood alone among the watermelons, my heart pounding. What did any of this have to do with me? That night, I checked my mailbox for the first time in 2 weeks. Working night shifts at the hospital meant I often forgot about things like mail. Bills went on autopay. Everything important came through email. The physical mailbox was an afterthought. But Ruth's words echoed in my head. A lawyer, Grandma's estate, some house. The envelope was buried beneath credit card offers and grocery flyers. Cream-colored heavy paper. In the corner, Law Offices of Gerald Whitmore. I tore it open on my front steps, reading by the glow of my phone. Dear Ms. Dixon, we respectfully request your presence at our offices to discuss matters pertaining to the estate of Eleanor Mitchell. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to schedule an appointment. My grandmother's house, the little place where I'd spent 3 years caring for her. I'd assumed it would go to my mother or be divided among the whole family. That's how these things worked, wasn't it? But this letter was addressed only to me. I dialed the number with shaking fingers. A receptionist answered on the 3rd ring. After a brief hold, she offered me an appointment, the day after my birthday. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my apartment, turning the envelope over in my hands. Megan had asked about a lawyer's letter. My parents were planning something about Grandma's estate. And now this. The pieces were there, but I couldn't quite fit them together. I decided to go to the party anyway. Whatever was happening, I needed to see it for myself. But I wouldn't walk in blind, not this time. That letter sat in my mailbox for 2 weeks. 2 weeks that could have changed everything if I had known what it contained. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times I'd swallowed my voice to keep the peace. When I was 20, my father bought Megan a brand new BMW for her 16th birthday. I'd saved for 3 years to afford my used Honda. No one saw anything wrong with this. When I turned 25, 26, 27, my mother forgot my birthday entirely. Megan got weekend spa trips. I got a text message. Sometimes. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, Megan announced to the whole table that I was just a nurse because I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. Everyone laughed. I smiled, said nothing. Every time I stayed silent, I told myself I was being mature, being the bigger person, keeping the family together. But lying there in the dark, I finally understood the truth. Every time I stayed silent to keep the peace, I lost a piece of myself. I thought about what I would lose if I kept this up. More years of being invisible, more holidays spent smiling through insults, more moments of watching my parents light up for Megan and look through me like I wasn't there. I would lose myself entirely, dissolve into the background of my own life until there was nothing left. No more. Whatever happened at that party, whatever my family was planning, I would not let them define me anymore. I would not shrink. I would not disappear. I pulled my grandmother's last letter from my nightstand and read her final words again. Live like you deserve to, sweetheart. I fell asleep with the letter pressed to my chest. I didn't know that promise would be tested in less than 24 hours. I pulled up to my parents' house wearing a navy blue dress, Grandma Eleanor's favorite color. The driveway was packed. Cars lined both sides of the street, spilling onto the neighbor's lawn, far more than I'd expected for a simple birthday party. My first real warning. I texted Danny before getting out. I'm here. Something feels off. Stay close to your phone. His reply came instantly. I'm parked 2 blocks away, just in case. Good old Danny, always prepared for the worst. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and froze. The living room had been transformed. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the space, easily 200 of them, all facing a long table at the far end. Like a courtroom, like a trial. Every chair was occupied. I recognized faces from childhood, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. My parents' business partners, neighbors from the old street. Even people I couldn't name, people who must have been invited just to fill seats. No balloons, no birthday cake, no streamers, just 200 pairs of eyes, all turning to stare at me. Megan appeared at my elbow, her smile too wide, too bright. You made it. Everyone's waiting. Waiting for what? My voice came out steadier than I felt. You'll see. She took my arm and guided me forward. Just go stand by the table. Where's the cake? Later. Megan, what is this? She didn't answer, just kept walking, her manicured nails digging into my sleeve. The crowd parted as we passed. No one said happy birthday. No one smiled. And then I was standing alone in front of that long table, 200 faces staring at me in silence. My father rose from his chair. My father picked up a microphone, the kind they use at weddings for speeches. Thank you all for coming. His voice echoed through the room. Tonight, our family needs to address an important matter. I scanned the crowd, found Aunt Ruth in the back corner, her face pale with dread. For 32 years, my father continued, turning to face me, your mother and I raised you, fed you, clothed you, paid for your education, gave you everything. Dad? My throat was dry. What's going on? Be quiet. I'm not finished. The room was absolutely silent. 200 people, not even breathing. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick stack of papers, held them up like evidence at a trial. This is a detailed accounting. Every dollar we spent on you, from the day you were born until you moved out. Food, medical bills, school supplies, birthday presents, everything. He flipped to the last page, running his finger down to the bottom. The total comes to $400,000. A murmur rippled through the crowd, shocked whispers. Someone coughed. $400,000, my father repeated, his eyes locked on mine. That we wasted on a daughter who turned her back on this family. I didn't turn my back on anyone. You have two choices, Holly. He set the papers on the table with a heavy thud. Pay back every cent, or sign away your claim to your grandmother's house. My blood went cold. My claim to what? Don't play dumb. The lawyer sent you a letter. I haven't even read it yet. Doesn't matter. He slid a document across the table. Sign this, give up the house, and we'll forget all about this bill. That's when my mother stood up. My mother walked to the family photo wall. I'd grown up staring at that wall. Generations of Dixons captured in gilded frames. My grandparents' wedding, my parents' honeymoon, Megan's ballet recitals, my graduation, holidays and birthdays stretching back decades. My mother reached up and pulled down the first photo. Me at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. 32 years. Her voice trembled with manufactured grief. 32 years of raising an ungrateful child. She ripped the photo in half. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She grabbed another frame. My high school graduation. A daughter who only thinks of herself. Rip. My nursing school diploma photo. Who never appreciated anything we gave her. Rip. Then she reached for the photo that made my heart stop. Me and Grandma Eleanor, taken the week before she died. Both of us smiling, her hand in mine. A daughter who manipulated a dying old woman. Rip. The pieces fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. 200 people watched in silence. Not one of them moved. Not one of them objected. Then Megan was there, reaching into my purse. She pulled out my car keys with a triumphant smile. Oh, and this? She dangled them in front of my face. Dad already transferred the title to me. I need it more than you do. I looked at my mother, surrounded by the torn fragments of my existence. At my father, his hand on that stack of papers. At my sister, my keys in her fist. At 200 relatives who'd watched my family try to erase me, and done nothing. I could have cried, I could have begged. I did neither. I took a breath, then another. Grandma's voice echoed in my mind. You are enough, Holly. You always were. I looked at my father, really looked at him. At the desperation behind his anger, at the way his hands shook, just slightly, on that stack of papers. Dad? My voice was calm, calmer than I felt. Have you actually read Grandma's will? He blinked. What? Her will, the legal document. Have you read it yourself? I don't need to read it. The house was supposed to go to the family. You're sure about that? Something flickered across his face. Doubt, maybe, or fear. You're asking me to sign away rights you haven't even verified. I kept my voice level, professional, like I was explaining a diagnosis to a patient. That's not how legal documents work. From the back of the room, Aunt Ruth gave me a small nod. I turned to Megan. How much do you owe exactly? Her face went white. What? The crypto investments. Kyle's sure thing. How deep are you? I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Whispers erupted through the crowd. Confused glances, people shifting in their seats. My mother stepped forward. This isn't about Megan. This is about you being selfish. No. I held up my hand. This is about you trying to take something that might not be yours, without even bothering to check. Silence. I looked at the torn photos scattered at my mother's feet, at the car keys still clutched in Megan's fist, at my father's careful accounting of everything I'd supposedly cost him. Then I looked at the door. I won't sign anything tonight, and I certainly won't sign anything under duress in front of 200 people. My father slammed his palm on the table. Sign the paper, Holly, or you're no longer a Dixon. I stood still for a moment, looking at the 200 faces staring back at me. Some curious, some pitying, most just waiting to see what would happen next. This was their entertainment for the evening. My humiliation, served up like dinner theater. I reached up and touched the bracelet on my wrist. Grandmother's bracelet, the one she'd given me the day before she died. Slowly, deliberately, I unclasped it and slipped it into my pocket, close to my heart. They didn't deserve to see it. "I will not sign anything tonight," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. "I will not make legal decisions while being publicly ambushed, and I will not stand here and let you erase me." My mother's face contorted. "How dare you? You've torn my photos off your wall." I cut her off. "Dad's demanded payment for raising me. Megan's taken my car. I have nothing left to lose here." I turned and walked toward the door. No one stopped me. No one reached out. No one said wait, or happy birthday, or I'm sorry. 200 people, and not a single one spoke. Danny's car was waiting at the end of the block, just like he'd promised. I climbed into the passenger seat without looking back. "You okay?" His voice was gentle. "No." I stared straight ahead. "But I will be." He pulled away from the curb, and my parents' house shrank in the rearview mirror until it disappeared entirely. I didn't know it then, but walking out that door was the best decision I ever made. It just took 4 days for my family to realize what they'd done. Before I tell you what happened in those 4 days, I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a situation that everyone expected you to endure? A moment where you finally said enough? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. And if you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe button. Now, let me tell you what happened next. Danny dropped me at my apartment and stayed on the couch that night. Neither of us slept much. By morning, my phone had exploded. 47 missed calls from my father, 33 from my mother, 21 text messages from Megan, each one more frantic than the last. "Call me back, it's urgent." The relatives were even worse. "How could you treat your parents like that? Your grandmother would be ashamed. Selfish. Always knew you were selfish." I turned off my phone and set it face down on the kitchen counter. Danny made coffee. Strong, black, the way I liked it during long shifts. He didn't ask questions. He just sat with me in the quiet. "They only know one side of the story," he finally said. "They don't want to know the other side." That afternoon, I pulled out Grandma Eleanor's memory box, the one she'd given me in her last weeks, filled with letters and photographs and small treasures from her life. At the bottom, I found an envelope I'd never opened. My name written in her shaky handwriting. Inside was a single page, her final letter to me. "My dearest Holly," it began, "by now you've probably discovered that things aren't going the way your parents expected. Don't worry, sweetheart. I've taken care of everything. They will try to take what I've left you. Don't let them. Mr. Whitmore knows everything. Trust him." I read those words 3 times. She'd known. Even before she died, she'd known exactly what my family would do, and she'd prepared for it. I looked at Danny, the letter trembling in my hands. "I think I need to see that lawyer." The next morning, I walked into Gerald Whitmore's office. He was older than I expected, silver-haired, kind-eyed, with the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every family drama imaginable. His office smelled like old books and furniture polish. "Ms. Dixon." He stood to shake my hand. "I've been waiting for you. You know what happened? Your grandmother predicted it. Almost word for word." He gestured to a leather chair. "Please, sit." He pulled a document from his desk. Heavy paper, official seals, notarized signatures. The will. "Your grandmother left her house to you, Holly. Not to the family. Not to be divided. To you and you alone." The words didn't make sense at first. "Just me? Why?" "Because you were the only one who was there." His voice softened. 3 years, Miss Dixon. You gave up your career, your apartment, your life to care for her. No one else even visited." I stared at the document, at my grandmother's signature at the bottom, the handwriting I knew so well. The house is valued at approximately $650,000, Whitmore continued. It's yours, free and clear. No one can take it from you. But my father said, your father assumed. Whitmore leaned back. He never actually read the will. He just assumed your grandmother would divide everything equally, the way most people do. She didn't. No, she knew exactly who deserved it. He paused. There's one more thing. A condition your grandmother included. My heart pounded. What kind of condition? If any family member attempts to coerce or threaten you into surrendering your inheritance, they forfeit any claim to her remaining assets. He smiled just slightly. Your grandmother was a very smart woman, but he wasn't finished. The office door opened behind me. I turned to find Aunt Ruth standing in the doorway, her expression soft and sad, and somehow relieved all at once. Hello, sweetheart. Aunt Ruth? I half rose from my chair. What are you doing here? She crossed the room and sat in the chair beside mine. Your grandmother asked me to be here when the time came. Whitmore nodded. Mrs. Mitchell served as a witness when Eleanor drafted this will. She was present for every decision. I looked between them, my mind racing. You knew? This whole time? I knew. Ruth reached over and took my hand. Your grandmother called me 3 years ago, right after you moved in with her. She said, Patricia will never accept this. Holly will need someone in her corner. My eyes burned. Why didn't you tell me? Eleanor made me promise not to. She wanted you to know her love was unconditional, not that you were expecting an inheritance. Ruth squeezed my fingers. She said you were the only one who loved her for herself, not for what she could give you. The rest of the family, Whitmore added, was informed of the will's existence, but not its contents. They assumed they knew. They were wrong. I thought of my mother tearing photos off the wall, my father's $400,000 bill, Megan's triumphant smile as she snatched my keys, all of it based on an assumption, a lie they'd told themselves. Your grandmother's last wish, Ruth said, her voice breaking, was for you to know that you are enough, Holly, you always were. You never needed anyone's permission to matter. I cried then, for the first time since that terrible birthday. But these weren't tears of grief, they were tears of relief. By the second day after my birthday, the calls had become desperate. I turned my phone back on just long enough to count. 62 missed calls from my father, 48 from my mother, and one very long voicemail from Megan, her voice cracking with what might have been panic or might have been rage. Holly, the lawyer called us back. There's been some kind of mistake. You need to call me, right now. I played it for Danny while we sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee that had gone cold. Mistake, he snorted. That's what they're calling it? The texts were even more revealing. From my father, we need to talk, there's been a misunderstanding. From my mother, Holly, please, this isn't what we wanted. From Megan, the lawyer says you're the only heir? That can't be right. Call me. I showed Danny the screen. Funny how misunderstanding is their favorite word when things don't go their way. His expression darkened. They were perfectly clear 2 nights ago. No misunderstanding then. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my father. We're family, Holly. Don't let some legal document come between us. I read it twice. Then I laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Legal documents didn't come between us, Dad, I said to the empty screen. You did, when you read that bill in front of 200 people. Danny reached over and gently took the phone from my hands. You don't have to respond. I know, but part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to scream every truth I'd swallowed for 32 years. Instead, I turned the phone off again. Some battles aren't won with words. They're won with silence. But silence wasn't going to be enough for my family. On the 3rd day, they came to my door. I was alone this time. Danny had gone back to his apartment, just 2 floors up. I heard the knock, 3 sharp raps, and checked the peephole. My father, my mother, Megan. All three of them, standing in my hallway like a delegation. I opened the door but didn't step aside, didn't invite them in. Holly. My father's voice had changed, softer now, almost pleading. We need to talk. So talk. My mother wrung her hands. Sweetheart, the other night, I got carried away. I was upset. You tore my photos off the wall, Mom, in front of 200 people. I didn't mean. You called me ungrateful while you ripped up my graduation picture. Was that an accident too? Silence. Megan pushed forward. Holly, listen. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. If I can't come up with the money, then you'll face the consequences of your own choices. Her face reddened. You don't understand. Kyle and I made bad investments. I know. I leaned against the doorframe. That's not my problem to solve. My father straightened, trying to regain control. That house should belong to the whole family. Your grandmother wanted me to have it. My voice was steady. That's why she put my name on the will, not yours. You're being selfish. My mother's grief had curdled into anger. After everything we did for you, you publicly disowned me on my birthday. I met her eyes. You demanded $400,000 for the crime of being born. You watched your other daughter steal my car. I paused. And now you want me to pretend we're family? We are family. That's not how this works. My father's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and I saw something flicker across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or dread. I have to take this, he answered without stepping away. Barbara, now isn't a good... I could hear her voice through the speaker, loud, angry. Richard, I just got off the phone with Gerald Whitmore. My father's jaw tightened. Barbara. He says Holly is the sole beneficiary, that Eleanor left her everything. Is that true? It's complicated. And he mentioned something else. Something about a coercion clause. If anyone tries to force Holly to give up her inheritance, they lose their own claims. My mother's face went gray. Richard, Barbara's voice carried through the hallway. Tell me you didn't publicly disown your daughter over a house that was never yours to begin with. That's not what happened. I was there. I watched Patricia tear those photos. I watched you read that ridiculous bill. Her voice cracked with disgust. 200 people saw what you did, Richard. And now everyone knows the truth. Barbara, please. The whole family is talking. You tried to humiliate your own daughter into giving up her legal inheritance. And you didn't even bother to check if you had a claim. My father's hand shook. The phone trembled against his ear. No one, Barbara continued, her voice like ice, is on your side. Not after this. She hung up. The four of us stood in my doorway, frozen. My mother had gone pale. Megan looked like she might cry. My father stared at his phone as if it had betrayed him. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. I think, I said quietly, you should leave now. I want to pause here and ask you something. If you were in my shoes, standing in that doorway, watching your family realize what they'd done, would you have forgiven them? Or would you have walked away for good? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see how this ends, keep watching. But first, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my stories. Now, let me tell you what I decided. My father pocketed his phone. When he looked up, his expression had changed. The anger was gone. In its place was something I'd never seen before. Desperation. Holly. His voice was different now, smaller. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can we please talk about this like adults? I studied his face. Are you sorry because you were wrong, or because everyone found out? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. My mother pushed past him, tears streaming down her face. Holly, please. Megan needs help. She's your sister. If she loses everything, then she loses everything. I kept my voice calm, steady, like explaining to a patient why we couldn't give them the medication they wanted. She's a grown woman, Mom. She made her own choices. You heartless... Megan stepped forward, fists clenched. I'm your sister. And you took my car keys out of my hand while our mother destroyed my childhood photos. I didn't flinch. You don't get to play the family card after that. My father tried again. The house belongs with the family. That's what your grandmother would have wanted. Grandmother wanted me to have it. She put it in writing. She hired a lawyer. She made a witness sign. I straightened my shoulders. That's not an opinion, Dad. That's a legal fact. So you're just going to keep it? All of it? I'm going to honor grandmother's wishes, exactly as she specified. He stared at me for a long moment. Then something in him seemed to break. Fine. His voice was cold again, defeated. Don't come crying to us when you realize what you've thrown away. I won't. I stepped back and put my hand on the door. I'm not abandoning family, Dad. I'm just done being treated like I don't exist. I closed the door in their faces. The fourth day, I returned to Mr. Whitmore's office. Sunlight streamed through his windows, catching dust motes in the air. Everything felt calmer now, clearer. I've made my decision, I said, settling into the leather chair. I want to keep the house, but I don't want to sell it. Whitmore nodded, pulling out a fresh stack of documents. What would you like to do with it? Grandmother always said she wanted it to be a peaceful place, somewhere quiet, safe. I paused, remembering our conversations on her porch. I'll keep it exactly as she left it. Live in it. Take care of it. A fitting tribute. I signed the ownership transfer papers with a steady hand. Each signature felt like a small victory. There's one more matter, Whitmore said, sliding another document across the desk. Regarding the vehicle. I'd almost forgotten. The car Megan took. Your father had no legal authority to transfer the title. The vehicle was registered in your name, purchased with your funds. The transfer was invalid. What does that mean? It means we can file a complaint. Have the registration corrected. He leaned back. Essentially, get your car back. For the first time in days, I almost smiled. Let's do that. As I signed the last paper, I looked up. Mr. Whitmore, did my grandmother ever say anything about my family? Before she died? He was quiet for a moment. Then, she said, they won't understand, but Holly will, and that's enough. My eyes stung. She really knew them, didn't she? She knew all of you. He smiled gently. That's why she made the choices she did. I left his office with the deed in my hands and peace in my heart. The hard part was over. The healing was just beginning. Within a week, the fallout had spread far beyond my doorway. The 200 people who'd watched my public humiliation had started talking. And talking. And talking. News travels fast in families. It travels even faster when there's scandal involved. I heard about it from Aunt Ruth, who called me every few days now. Your parents' friends are distancing themselves, she told me over the phone. The Hendersons canceled their standing dinner date. The Watsons stopped returning calls. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. People saw what they did, Holly. They drew their own conclusions. Worse came from the business world. My father's real estate company depended on reputation, on trust, on the image of a solid family man making solid deals. One of his biggest clients, a developer named Martinez who'd worked with him for 15 years, pulled out of a $50,000 contract. I heard what happened at your daughter's birthday party, Martinez reportedly said. I don't do business with people who treat family that way. My mother's social circles crumbled just as quickly. She'd been a member of the same charity board for 20 years. They quietly removed her from the committee. We need members who align with our values, the chair told her. I didn't feel triumphant hearing any of this, just tired and sad. They did this to themselves, Danny said when I told him. You didn't post anything online. You didn't tell anyone. They were the ones who invited 200 witnesses. He was right. The truth has a way of speaking for itself. I didn't need to say a word. My silence was louder than anything I could have said. But while my parents dealt with their social consequences, Megan was facing something much worse. A month later, Aunt Ruth brought me the news about Megan. We were sitting on my apartment balcony, drinking tea in the autumn sunlight. Ruth had become a regular presence in my life now, the family connection I'd always wished I'd had. Megan had to sell her house, Ruth said quietly. I set down my cup. Sell it? She and Kyle couldn't make the payments anymore. The crypto debt caught up with them. Ruth sighed. They've moved back in with your parents. I tried to feel satisfaction, vindication. Instead, I just felt hollow. Your mother blames everyone but herself, of course. Ruth stirred her tea absently. The economy, the market, you, mostly. Me? If only Holly had shared the inheritance, none of this would have happened. Ruth mimicked my mother's voice with bitter accuracy. That's the story she's telling anyone who'll listen. The inheritance wouldn't have covered Megan's debts anyway. I know that. You know that. Patricia will never admit it. I watched a bird land on the balcony railing. Grandmother had loved birds. She used to leave seed out for them every morning. Do you regret it? Ruth asked after a moment. Any of it? I thought carefully before answering. I regret that they never saw me as part of the family, that nothing I did was ever enough. I paused. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Not anymore. Ruth reached over and squeezed my hand. Eleanor would be so proud of you. I hope so. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower. Megan's debt was never my responsibility, but somehow, my family had made me feel like it was. For 32 years, I'd carried guilt that didn't belong to me. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, I got my car back. The legal process had been surprisingly simple. Mr. Whitmore filed the paperwork, proving that the title transfer was invalid. The vehicle had been registered in my name, purchased with my money. My father had no authority to give it away. A police officer accompanied me to my parents' house to retrieve it. I'd been dreading this moment, another confrontation, another scene. But when we pulled up, the house looked smaller somehow, less imposing. Megan met us at the door. Her face was drawn, tired. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 weeks. She held out my keys without a word. Thank you, I said, and meant it. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Shame, maybe, or regret. But then her expression hardened, and she turned away, disappearing back into the house without another word. I didn't see my parents. I didn't want to. As I walked to my car, a voice called from behind me. Holly! I turned. Aunt Ruth stood on the front steps, having come out through the side door. Are you okay? I looked at the house where I'd grown up. The windows I used to look out of, dreaming of something more. The front yard where I'd played alone while Megan had friends over. I'm learning how to be okay, I said honestly. Ruth smiled, her eyes glistening. That's enough. I climbed into my car, and started the engine. The familiar hum settled something in my chest. Getting my car back wasn't really about the car. It was about taking back what was mine, including my dignity. I pulled out of that driveway for the last time, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror. I didn't look back. 1 month later, I moved into grandmother's house. The little place on the edge of town felt different now, quieter, more mine. I spent the first week cleaning, organizing, letting her presence settle around me like a warm blanket. I kept her favorite chair by the window, her tea set in the kitchen, the bird feeder she'd filled every morning for 40 years. Some things I changed. Fresh paint in the bedroom, new curtains in the living room. Small touches that made the space feel like both of us, together. Once I was settled, I sent one final message to my parents. It took me 3 hours to write. I don't hate any of you. But I can't continue being treated like I don't exist. You disowned me publicly. You demanded payment for raising me. You stood by while my photos were torn off the wall. These aren't things I can simply forget. If there ever comes a day when you want a real relationship, not based on money, not based on obligation, but on genuine care, you know how to reach me. Until then, I need distance. Please respect that. I hit send and turned off my phone. No one replied. I wasn't surprised. Part of me was relieved. In the weeks that followed, I built a new life. Danny came over every Saturday for dinner. Aunt Ruth visited on Sunday afternoons. My coworkers from the hospital became closer friends than I'd ever allowed before. I wasn't alone. I had family. They just weren't related to me by blood. And somehow, that made them more precious. I stood on grandmother's porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. I'm figuring it out, Grandma, I whispered, just like you said I would. 3 months later, I sat on grandmother's porch with her last letter in my hands. The paper had grown soft from all the times I'd read it. The ink was starting to fade in places. But those final words still hit me like the first time. Live like you deserve to, sweetheart. For 32 years, I'd been waiting for my family to see me, to value me, to love me the way I loved them. I'd shrunk myself to fit their expectations, silenced my voice to keep their peace, given up pieces of my soul every time I let their cruelty slide. It took being publicly disowned on my birthday, in front of 200 people, to finally understand. I never needed their permission to matter. Grandmother knew that. She'd always known. That's why she left me the house. Not because of the money or the property or any material value, but because she wanted me to have proof. Physical, undeniable proof that someone in my family had seen me all along. I wasn't the ungrateful daughter they'd painted me as. I wasn't the burden, the disappointment, the failure. I was the one who showed up, the one who stayed, the one who loved without conditions. And that was enough. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in colors grandmother would have loved. Somewhere in the trees, a bird was singing. I miss you, Grandma, I said to the empty chair beside me. Every single day. The breeze picked up, rustling through the leaves like a whisper, like an answer. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my heart. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving me permission to choose myself. After all, that's what she'd really left me. Not a house. Permission. That's my story. It wasn't easy to tell, but I hope it helped someone out there who's going through something similar. Here's what I learned. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Check out the description for more stories like this one. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.